Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe is a failed state. I think many people would not dispute that, except, of course, those diehard ZANU-PF supporters. Here is a video clip of Edson Zobo talking about the kind of Zimbabwe that most people believed we're going to have after independence. And then we can compare it and contrast with the reality.
How can you be certain that whatever government you set up won't eventually become oppressive, won't be the sort of society where people are frightened of speaking out, or frightened of doing anything without looking over their shoulder?
We do not want to create a socio-legal order in the country in which people are petrified, in which people go to bed having barricaded their doors and their windows because someone belonging to the special branch of the police will break into their houses. This is what we've been fighting against. Every one of us has been in jail 10 years, 14 years. I myself 9 without trial. Every one of us has had to leave scared of the police. How on earth could we create a society which is exactly like that? We don't want it. We are fed up of it. And this is why we are in this revolution for as long as is necessary to abolish this system.
Ben, we have not abolished the misrule, the oppression, and the country is sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss. What has gone wrong?
Good day to everybody. I will start by saying this is deja vu. You know, what was happening then is happening now. The worst part is it's black upon black. We are oppressing each other. I mean, we don't have to guess. Look, there are people, that are actually in prison right now for a crime they did not commit, but they were supposed to commit in the future. And up to today, they have not yet been released. This is exactly what is happening. And they don't have any trial. They don't have a case to answer, but they are just, languishing in jail. We are living it. There is no independence if the situation is like that. So the question now comes back to say, what did we fight for?
Yeah, I think it is tragic. But what is happening here?
Economic stability.
Sorry, I meant to add that, but I'll add it on later on. The truth of the matter is Zimbabwe's economy has all but collapsed because for the last 44 years, we've had a corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical regime. And the nation has been stuck with it. They're not able to change it. ZANU-PF are in power and they believe they have the divine right to rule. And I think this is at the heart of our problem. This is not the Zimbabwe we wanted. And I think most people could not believe Mnangagwa yesterday when he was supposedly having his State of the Nation address. And you could see, he seemed to be talking of a totally different world. totally divorced from the reality of the real Zimbabwe today. Here's just a video clip of him.
Of macroeconomic stability. The adoption of the Zimbabwe gold, the ZiG, in April 2024 this year, was an important step towards stabilizing the domestic currency anchored by our gold and precious metal reserves. It remains the duty of all of us to respect and abide by measures and instruments intended to maintain economic stability and tame inflation in our country. In response to the increased foreign currency pressures and in a bid to deepen the foreign exchange market, the Reserve Bank allowed for greater flexibility under the willing buyer, willing seller arrangement. The increased flexibility on the foreign exchange market is expected to further promote effective price discovery and encourage holders of foreign exchange to participate in the willing buyer, willing seller market. Government remains committed to backing the currency through setting aside 50% of royalties for building reserves. Our currency banking sector is on sounding footing with sufficient capital and liquidity buffers, while profitability, asset quality, and liquidity metrics have also remained stable. However, we note with concern the resurgence of parallel market activities driven by speculative tendencies. Corrective measures are being instituted to protect all Zimbabweans from economic disruptions. Together, let us lay a solid foundation for economic prosperity, peaceful development, and freedom from undue external interference.
And that is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. We have the regime that firmly believes that even after 44 years of the country going into meltdown, they have a solution. They do not admit that they failed, and they indeed believe that they are on course to making Zimbabwe prosperous and stable. That is the problem we have here, Ben.
I agree with you. I think we have individuals in office that are very delusional. I mean, first of all, just with what he said, the willing buyer, willing seller. In my understanding, it becomes a deal between two people, and they have, two different currencies, and they want to exchange amongst each other. It is now up to them to decide at which rate, one wants to sell to the other and one wants to buy from the other, and whatever they agree between themselves is okay. Which means, the question then comes: why are you arresting people that are agreeing? They are willing buyer and willing seller. They are agreeing on the street. Why then are you then arresting them? You see, we have a problem with, such people that are very, very delusional. They have totally lost, common sense, or what makes us human at the end of the day. They, they don't see anything wrong with where the country is at. And the biggest problem with ZANU-PF is, especially with this so-called Second Republic, is that they have now benchmarked themselves using the Mugabe era, which is not right. The correct benchmark is when you inherited the country, when we got independence, how was the country? It was, it was meant to be the next Singapore. But then, years of mismanagement, corruption, and everything, we are a basket case. So you cannot then say, we are moving, milestones, when in fact you were the ones, they were part of it. Him, Mr. President Mnangagwa, was actually vice president and was actually minister, different ministerial positions he held during the Mugabe era. So he was part and parcel of it, in the destruction, in the destroying, in the looting. So you cannot wash your hands clean and say, we are moving milestones now because the Second Republic has built a few roads and a few bridges. No. I think that is very wrong, and it's sad. It's very, very sad to see that we are dealing with people that will never back down to say, guys, we are sorry, we've messed up, come, let's reason together.
I think one of the problems here is we have got a situation where those in positions of power and authority, and they've been in positions of power and authority the last 44 years, will not accept that other people should have a meaningful say in how the country is run. This idea that we have got a problem, but I've got the solution. When you find in this particular case, the same individuals who were in power and who led us to this situation are the ones who are insisting that they have the solution, that becomes untenable. You are the problem. How can you be the solution too? There's something fundamentally wrong with our political system. It's incapable of correcting itself. Because when you've got people who are in power and they insist they and they alone have the solution, there is a problem there. I think if we go back to what people were fighting for before independence, it's one man, one vote. That encapsulated the very essence of a meaningful vote, a meaningful say in the governance of the country. ZANU-PF ignored that in 1980. They started by denying people the right to a meaningful vote under the pretext that they didn't trust the British and the Ian Smith regime to hold free, fair, and credible elections. Even if one was to give them credit for that, what happened then with the next election, 1985, was even worse. Because 1985 elections were held in the middle of the now infamous Kukura-Wundi. The primary purpose of the Kukura-Wundi war was to force PF SAPU to join ZANU-PF to clear the way for the imposition of a one-party state. And ever since, ZANU-PF has never held free, fair, and credible elections. Last year, we held elections. Mnangagwa blatantly rigged those elections. Even SADC, AU election observers, condemned those elections as flawed and illegal. This is what has got us where we are. I think that is where Zimbabweans should start. How are we going to get out of this mess? That is the problem that we must address.
I agree with you there. I also wanted to say, in my conclusion to say, more than ever, we need to put our act together as Zimbabweans. We cannot afford to give ZANU-PF legitimacy in 2028. This whole notion of participating in rigged election, must be stopped. I want to give you a statistic to say, most of us know how full our prisons are. It's in a very, very bad state. It's inhuman. And then the statistic is 95% of the inmates inside our prisons are under the age of 25. And, that's a very, very scary statistic. And most of our 25-year-olds that are actually, and below, that are actually outside the prisons are on the streets, hustling, doing illegal acts, drugs, whatever. This is the future. These are the ones that are going to carry the torch at some point. And if we create a platform that allows, such a livelihood to continue, it becomes a habit. Lord knows how our country will be in the next 50 years when they become the next leaders. What are we teaching them? How will they operate? What will seem normal to them, you know, would be, catastrophic. We really, really need to start putting our acts together. ZANU-PF will not reform itself out of power. It is only us that can put an end to this mess. And in my opinion, we can start by stop participating in rigged elections. Whoever tells you that they have strategies or whatever, it is a lie. There is absolutely no way you can win rigged elections. 24 years of experience says that. And I really, really hope that we think about it and we sincerely, sincerely think about it before, we crumble the whole of Zimbabwe for the next 100 years. Thank you.
Sorry about that. We must accept that the political system we have is not working. We have got a situation here where at the beginning we played a video clip of Mnangagwa addressing the State of the Nation address. What he was saying was gibberish. It didn't make any sense at all. It was completely divorced from the reality. He was talking of the ZIG being powerful and stable. And yet it was his own regime that devalued the ZIG by half last week. And he didn't say anything about it. We have got a political system that has failed. Zimbabweans have to accept that. The present political system is not going to solve any problems, any of the nation's problems. It's only going to drag us deeper and deeper into the abyss. Mnangagwa, as much as he wants to claim that he knows he has got the solution to the country's problems. The truth is, he doesn't. He has no clue what is going on here. And it is absolutely imperative that we deal with this problem in a meaningful way and stop this circus of going round and round in circles. 2023, last year, those elections were flawed and illegal. And SADC and the AU said so. I believe SADC and the AU would have gone one step further and denied ZANU-PF political legitimacy if the opposition had not participated in the flawed elections in their millions. The challenge is to make sure that the opposition is not into participating in 2028 in their millions again to give the regime legitimacy. Ideally, we would have wanted 2028 to be held after we had implemented the reforms. There will be no time to implement the reforms. ZANU-PF will never reform itself out of office. The opposition, such as it is, will never push the regime to implement reforms. So the next best solution is to make sure that we do not participate in these flawed elections. We have got, in the form of Mnangagwa, somebody who has absolutely no clue what is happening here. And the prospect of another ZANU-PF regime running the nation's affairs for the next 5 years after 2028 is unthinkable. Mnangagwa giving his gibberish is the last thing the country wants. Thank you very much for those of you who were able to join us tonight. And thank you very much, Ben, and have a good night.
A pleasure. Thank you. Good night.